He spent 2 decades building ghosts. His illicit creations sit locked in the vaults of the ultra-wealthy, masquerading as undisputed historical artifacts. Total deception is the core goal. We are tearing open the black market of horology from the bottom to the top. There are 7 tiers of counterfeit watches. They are not ranked by how well they mimic a brand, but by the sheer, unadulterated skill required to forge them. We start at the absolute bottom with level 1. This represents the cliché everyone pictures when you say the word fake, a tourist market special spread out on a velvet blanket in an alleyway. Sweatshops produce these with 0 quality control. Grab one off the table and you instantly feel the deception, because the cheap tin casing lacks the necessary gravity of real steel. Misspelled logos tilt just enough to make you wince. Criminals print these plastic toys for one single reason: separating a clueless tourist from $50 before they walk away. There is 0 craft and 0 ambition. We only look at this tier to establish our baseline, because from this point forward, the narrative fractures. You get from a plastic piece of garbage on a street corner to a masterpiece that bankrupts a Swiss auction house by following the ambition. Digging deeper into this underworld reveals a ruthless reflection of the legitimate luxury market. Research and development departments thrive here. Supply chain logistics rival tech conglomerates, while engineers sacrifice their lives obsessing over one single gear ratio. It forces you to look at everything sitting behind a velvet rope with suspicion. Hit subscribe if tearing apart the mechanics of hidden industries hooks you. We are exposing the truth. But before touching the million-dollar ghosts, we need to step up from the gutter. Level 2 is the volume operation. Take one step up from the alleyways and you hit the fakes currently flooding secondary internet markets. Here, someone finally decided to pay attention to the broad strokes. Stainless steel carries real physical weight. Bend your wrist and the bracelet refuses to snap. Syndicate bosses even throw in a functional automatic movement, usually a cheap clone ticking loud enough to hear across a silent room. Do not confuse this with horological ambition, as it represents pure logistics. These networks operate on a scale that defies belief, churning out hundreds of thousands of units a year through international supply chains that rival Fortune 500 tech companies. Millions of dollars move completely off the books. Heavy volume moves relentlessly through sophisticated international shipping networks. Put one of these level 2 counterfeits under a magnifying glass, and the grand illusion shatters into 1,000 pieces. Dial printing bleeds at the edges. Rough, jagged borders expose hands stamped rapidly from cheap sheet metal, while luminous paint clumps unevenly because automated machines run far too hot. It functions as a factory product designed to look acceptable from precisely 5 feet away. Closer than that, the magic dies. The criminals running these operations function as ruthless businessmen optimizing a pipeline, meaning they care little about the soul of the machine. Margins dictate everything. Finding actual pride requires you to look smaller, plunging us deeper into the dark. Level 3 is where the shift happens. This exact moment marks when you can feel a human being making decisions instead of a machine running a template. Small, underground workshops emerge where makers start actually caring about the details. Guessing stops, and intense study of the genuine articles begins. Builders realize a Rolex Submariner bezel clicks exactly 120 times. They notice it possesses a very specific acoustic resonance, so they tune the bezel spring to match that exact sound. Someone sat in a shadow factory and obsessed over the sound of a click. Finishing on the hands gets cleaner, and dial printing sharpens up. The obvious tells are gone, and presentation elevates from cheap imitation to deliberate craft. To an expert with a loupe, a level 3 watch is still obviously fake, but casual enthusiasts are fooled easily. This brings us to a very uncomfortable crossroads. Reaching this tier meant whoever built this watch had to sit down and learn the fundamentals of the craft. Buying specialized tools was mandatory, and caring became a requirement. The moment you introduce actual pride into a counterfeit product, the moral high ground of the luxury industry gets shaky. You are no longer just looking at a machine stamping out theft. Observers are watching an apprentice try to master a discipline they are legally forbidden from participating in. Apprentices learn how a crown should feel when wound, and polishing steel until it catches the light perfectly becomes their obsession. Level 4 is the paradox level. Most people assume fakes are inherently inferior, built by unskilled laborers taking every possible shortcut. At this tier, that assumption collapses. Building a watch that truly looks and feels like a $15,000 Swiss luxury timepiece means you cannot fake the physics. Machining the metal is required. Applying chemical luminescence to a dial perfectly without it looking muddy takes immense practice. Acquiring real skills, professional tools, and deep materials knowledge separates the amateurs from the pros. Skill poured into something illegitimate is still skill. There is no shortcut for that. Physical reality demands genuine expertise, and this brutal fact changes the entire conversation about value. Counterfeiters at this level buy genuine watches just to tear them down to the last screw. Reverse engineering the architecture piece by piece takes months, and shadow syndicates invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into research and development. This is not the theft of a physical object. It is the unauthorized mastery of an entire discipline. It forces you to look at the watch on your wrist and ask what we are looking at if the person making the fake had to become a master watchmaker to do it. Lines blur entirely. The machinery required to mill these cases matches the exact equipment sitting in Switzerland. Unlicensed engineers built a one-to-one physical recreation because they understand the science behind the design. Welcome to Level 5, the era of the superclone. Here, the technical gap between fraud and reality collapses under sheer engineering. Take the steel itself. For decades, Rolex monopolized 904L stainless steel, an alloy that demands highly specialized machinery just to cut it. Replica factories could have defaulted to standard metal and called it a day, but they refused. Smugglers acquired the equipment, and unlicensed operators matched the brushed and polished surface ratios flawlessly, eliminating physical differences entirely. Counterfeiters stared at the fortress of Swiss metallurgy and purchased identical weapons to breach the gates. The outside of the watch fell, which meant they had to conquer the engine next. For decades, the dead giveaway of any forgery sat right inside the movement. You pop the case back, spot a cheap engine, and the game ends. At Level 5, underground facilities started churning out what the industry labels one-to-one clone movements. Mechanical engines like the Dandong 4130 shattered the entire paradigm. We are looking at a direct architectural replica of the Rolex Daytona caliber. Unlicensed builders map a sprawling microscopic city to mirror the genuine article, positioning gears, bridges, and ruby bearings with lethal precision. They even copy the free-sprung balance wheel. Achieving this required rogue engineers to program CNC machines to slice raw metal down to fractions of a millimeter, while blind assembly lines piece the deception together. Nobody just made a watch that looks like a Rolex. They constructed a fully functional mechanical chronograph from scratch. Black market dealers sell it for a fraction of the retail price, which brutally dismantles the illusion that mechanical watchmaking is an exclusive trick only the Swiss can perform. These illicit facilities proved it is just math, metal, and machinery. Doing it right out in the open humiliates the legacy brands. Swiss executives hate admitting it. But these clone movements run relentlessly, and accurate timekeeping is standard. Local watchmakers easily service them because the architecture mimics the original without hesitation. Flawlessly replicating the heart of the machine means you are no longer making a fake watch. You are making an unlicensed original. This is the exact point where the traditional watch industry starts sweating. If the metal is identical and the engine is identical, the only thing separating the real from the fake is a piece of paper in a box. If this specific breakdown of how things actually work behind the scenes is hitting different for you, take a single second to hit like. Algorithm engagement genuinely helps show this to more people who need to see the reality of these industries. Digging deeper proves the legitimate brands are fighting a war they are currently losing. We have seen the engineering, and now we need to look at the syndicates actually running the machines. Level 6 is the professional operation. By this tier, the concept of a counterfeit feels almost inadequate. Full-scale professional watchmaking operations just happen to exist outside the law. We're talking about highly organized syndicates. Names whispered on underground replica forums carry serious weight, like Clean Factory and VSF. These are not back-alley shops. Multi-million-dollar enterprises operate with strict quality control departments and immaculate, dust-free workshops. Technicians in white coats wear finger cots and check tolerances under high-powered microscopes. It is a fully professional assembly line operating with corporate efficiency. Research budgets are large, marketing teams run parallel networks, and beta testers provide feedback. A completely parallel luxury universe operates entirely in the shadows, and their products threaten the legitimate market. Fakes at this tier boast such flawless execution they routinely defraud actual jewelers. Technicians bake ceramic bezels in industrial kilns to hit the identical Pantone color code of the genuine brand. They electroplate genuine platinum dust right into the bezel numerals, and sapphire crystals carry identical anti-reflective chemical coatings. Attention to microscopic detail drives operators to scrutinize fought weights and measure laser etchings until the serial number formats mirror reality without a single flaw. These underground factories possess the talent and mechanical infrastructure to launch their own legitimate luxury watch brands tomorrow. Competing on the open market would be effortless, but syndicate bosses actively choose not to because the black market pays better and comes with zero marketing overhead. Hand a level 6 watch to an authentic luxury dealer, and they often cannot tell it is fake with the naked eye. Opening the case back is mandatory, and even then, because those cloned movements are so perfect, some dealers still get fooled. High-powered microscopes and a lifetime of Swiss authentication training are required to spot the microscopic differences in the beveling of a single gear. Professional authenticators are sweating over watches that cost $500 to make. Even these syndicates have a ceiling, as mass production inherently limits perfection. Reaching the absolute pinnacle of this world means leaving the factory behind entirely to find the solo genius. Level 7 is the Ghost Craftsman. In November 2021, an ultra-rare 1957 Omega Speedmaster hit the auction block at Phillips in Geneva. We are talking about the legendary Broad Arrow, a holy grail for vintage collectors. Bidding exploded in the room, driving the final price to $3.1 million. The buyer was Omega's own museum. Historians acquired the piece to preserve their brand's legacy, only to unearth a brutal truth 2 years later. The watch was a complete fraud. It was not some factory replica, but a Frankenstein monster stitched together by an unseen artisan who spent decades studying the atomic details of vintage horology. Sourcing authentic vintage parts, this rogue engineer fabricated the missing components and aged them with chemical precision. This wasn't just a good copy, as the precision was so absolute that it fooled the world's leading auctioneers. It fooled the very company that invented the watch. The brand's own historians looked at this object and authenticated it as their own crowning achievement. That is level 7. Individuals operate entirely alone in the vintage watch world as artists of decay. Radium paint degradation over 60 years is a science they understand perfectly, and the exact font serifs used by Swiss dial printers in 1965 are memorized. Solitary craftsmen bake dials in custom ovens, and calibrated UV light is used to simulate decades of sun exposure. Custom-made microscopic stamps recreate serial numbers flawlessly. Factory work is dead at this tier. Their work does not sit on replica forums for teenagers to argue over. It sits locked in the vaults of billionaires. Masterpieces pass through Christie's, Sotheby's, and Phillips without raising a single alarm. Men and women at this level possess technical mastery and historical knowledge that surpass almost anyone currently alive in the legitimate industry. They are master watchmakers by every definition of the word. Metallurgy, chemistry, and the mechanics of horology are understood better here than by the CEOs running the Swiss brands today. Instead of putting their own names on the dial, they choose to erase themselves. Talent is poured into a lie, and the lie is so beautiful that the entire world buys it. These phantom artisans pour their whole lives into an illegitimate discipline. Their output gets celebrated, fully insured, and fiercely protected by wealthy collectors who genuinely believe they hold authentic history in their hands, while the creators remain totally anonymous. Engineering a record-breaking masterpiece and never claiming a single ounce of credit demands a deeply fractured psychology, forming the ultimate paradox of level 7. The most talented watchmakers of our generation might not even step foot in Switzerland. Hiding out in an unnamed room somewhere in Eastern Europe or Asia, they artificially age a dial to rewrite history one microscopic fraction of a millimeter at a time. Masterpieces are born in the dark. They wield the same formidable abilities as the founders of historic brands, choosing instead to weaponize those talents against the industry. Legacy watchmakers want you to believe that authenticity is everything. Brands spend hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing to convince you that the soul of a watch only exists if it was assembled in a specific geographic region. When the fake is built with more skill, more knowledge, and more obsession than the original, what exactly makes it fake? Is it the metal, the craft, or just the permission to wear it? At level 7, the lines vanish entirely. You are left staring at a perfect object built by a master who refuses to exist. This forces every collector on Earth to confront the reality they desperately want to ignore: that sometimes the lie is just better than the truth. The counterfeit watch industry operates as far more than a simple criminal enterprise. It acts as a brutal mirror held directly up to the luxury world, exposing the stark reality of what you actually purchase when buying a mechanical timepiece. From the cheap plastic garbage littering a street corner to the phantoms haunting the world's most prestigious auction houses, rogue ambition always finds a way to build something profound. We look at a forged object and call it a crime, but sometimes the crime is just a masterpiece wearing a mask. We are going to keep tearing apart these hidden economies because the truth is always hiding in the dark.